Here I am securing the rear body to the chassis. This is a small bracket. I think I showed it in an earlier video. It just allows me to bolt this in without the use of quick jacks. Makes adjustment really easy as well. So after the rear of the body is bolted in place, I move to the front, and like the rear, I'm using a different approach for bolting things in place. The first step is to build this bracket, and that's what you're seeing here. So I'm not sure you can actually see what I'm doing here, but I'll try my best to explain it. So in the nose of the car here, there are a couple of brackets that support the body to the frame, and like I mentioned before, I'm not using the two holes here that would support the front quick jack. Instead, I'm going to seal this up. I'm not going to do any quick jack, no bumper of any sort. Not that quick jacks act as a bumper, but basically there's not going to be anything here. So I want to improve on the way the body mounts to the frame, and made these couple of brackets. You saw me start with a paper template. These are going to sit in here like this. I'm going to fiberglass these to the body, and then these are going to bolt to this section here. And that should give me a really nice broad connection to the body. You know, in hindsight, I shouldn't have undercoated this section. This area here is going to be a royal pain to kind of get back down to raw fiberglass now that everything's here. But I can flex the body out a little bit as I need to, and then kind of grind this away. Hey, real quick here, this is the bracket as it's done. I'm getting ready to fiberglass it into the car. So these are the two bolt holes that go to the chassis. This bolt hole is basically going to act like a fiberglass rivet. Anytime you're fiberglassing a steel plate to a fiberglass structure, and you're looking either for this plate to add reinforcement or a mounting point, it's a good idea to put some holes in in the steel plate, so when the fiberglass cures over it, you basically end up getting a fiberglass rivet. It creates a stronger mechanical bond between the two pieces. Again, we're not really, fiberglass, we're not gluing this piece to the fiberglass. We're fiberglassing or laminating this piece into it. So this hole just allows the fiberglass to really bite onto the unit better. So the very first step is to lather on some long strand fiberglass filler to back these brackets. That way when the brackets are pressed into place, there's absolutely no gap between them and the fiberglass body. This is important because any gap there actually would probably end up leading to some sort of structural failure. From there, I then use rivets to draw these brackets in place, primarily just to hold them there until the fiberglass cures. Well, here's the end product. That steel bracket that I showed you earlier is entirely fiberglassed and is one with the nose piece of this body here. And there's a lot of fiberglass securing that steel bracket in place. I was concerned there's really quite a bit of force on that piece. If you think about, this really is what's holding this entire front nose of this body to the chassis. So I wanted to overdo it. You know, I'm guessing there's probably a 1/4 inch of fiberglass mat there that that's attached to that bracket. So plenty of meat. In terms of kind of the contact area, or the patch area for that fiberglass, it extends up to here, comes down, and it covers this much. So I'm grabbing a lot. I'm grabbing onto a big section of this nose, and it is very rigid. I mean, this is definitely not going anywhere, and also gave me an opportunity to seal up the back of these holes. So ultimately what I'll end up doing is filling this with some reinforced glass, and then sanding everything flush, and then those will go away. These 2 rivets here, these were countersunk, or counterbored I should say. So when the rivets drew in, this is pretty flush here. I mean, there's a little raised section here. These will sand smooth and then ultimately filled, and these will go away. So pretty happy with the way this came out. I do have a lot of confidence in this. I think actually it's a better way of securing the nose of this car to the chassis, to the frame. It's a more rigid method of doing it than the quick jack bolts, and I am not going to need that bracket that comes over that mounts to this. I mean, there's no flex in this at all, so I'm not going to need to use those brackets that comes with the kit. So here's a quick little tip that I stumbled upon. I'm using black electrical tape to gap these panels. It's super cheap stuff. You can buy it at the dollar store for $1 a roll, or $1.25 a roll, whatever it might be now. But it's flexible enough where you can round any of these corners. I found not a panel in the car that this stuff wouldn't round that radius well enough. So hope this tip serves you guys well and saves somebody a little money in the future. I'm not gonna lie to you, fitting these doors to the body is not a lot of fun. There's a lot of back and forth, and the way the hinge arrangement works is, it's not something you can kind of, well, I guess you can sneak up on it, but you basically, when you loosen the hinge to make any adjustments, you're basically loosening adjustments in more direction than just one. So it's definitely a balancing act. And I knew going into this that the body is not going to line up perfectly to the door, and vice versa. These are fiberglass forms. They come out of a big mold, and they're not going to be perfect. So I'm expecting some body work. And I guess once I started realizing that trying to get perfection out of adjustment is futile. So here's where I've ended up with. It ain't pretty, and I'll show you where I'm going to need to fill. The passenger side actually is considerably better than the driver's side. I think I've seen that. A few have mentioned that on the forum, that the driver's side was more challenging. But I'll show you where I'm at here, and you can see kind of my dilemma. It's a balance between flexing the body to fit the door, moving the door to fit the body. You kind of go back and forth on that a little bit. And ultimately, you kind of choose what's the better area to modify. What's the easiest area to modify with filler in order to blend these lines in. So I'll show you where I ended up, and see what you think. So this is the door, drive side door, and I guess for the most part lines are pretty good. This is all nice. I'm happy with this area here, and it still pretty good in here, great in here, and then this is where things go awry. And again, I've seen this before. Lots of people have listed the bottom front part of these doors just won't line up with the body, and I've moved the body in and out to compensate as best I can, and you push it in, and it doesn't work back here. You pull it out, and it doesn't work here. So I kind of struck a compromise, thinking that this is an area that I don't want to get into blending much, where this part of the door and up into here would be easier. What I guess I hadn't expected to do is needed to fill this in here. There is no way, this does not match this in any way as I could see. In fact, if you put a straight edge along here, this dips in right here. It does not do that on the passenger side. So I'll just fill this a little bit here, blend this out so everything kind of matches that way. But I guess the short of it is, once I took a step back and said, okay, I'm going to have to do some filling work. I'm going to have to sand and grind on this a bit to make it work. Once I took that stance, I relaxed in trying to get the door perfect, and I got the door as good as I could. Now I'm going to rely on the body work to fix it. Real quickly, I'll walk over here to the passenger side. Definitely better. This, I have not gapped it yet, but as you can see, the seams actually line up pretty damn good on the passenger side. Not a lot of work is going to be needed here, actually at all. As far as I can tell, this matches this almost spot on. These are the areas that you always have to clean up, and I'm gonna create a nice consistent radius all the way through here with filler. That part I expected. So yeah, here, the body adventure begins. Hood was a piece of cake. That went right in.
Yeah, I know I'm doing a lot of dialogue over video here. I figured I'd give you guys a break from the canned music I'm usually playing about now. But a lot of this takes some explanation. First, I have no idea what I'm doing here in terms of an approach, other than I know how I want it to look. So I know I want to fill this corner in. I'm going to call it the horn of the door. I don't know what else to call it, where it meets the dash. So what you saw here initially is me drilling some holes, blind holes, and this is to give the fiberglass a little more purchase. I'm asking a lot of fiberglass filler here. Well, it's not filler, it's long strand fiber, but I'm asking a lot of it because I'm building it out almost a ½ inch. And that is an attempt to complete this radius to where it meets the dash. Also, what you'll see here is that I'm actually using the dash as part of a way of forming this door in place. I added some filler pieces in the form of cardboard covered by packing tape to create a surface to form around. And you'll see how after things release that I'm, kind of what my approach is here to to creating a kind of a nicer looking seam.
Okay, let me explain a little bit what I've done here. I'm going about this, I think, kind of differently. Again, I know this has been a theme here, but I know a lot of you are probably cringing watching me doing this, and I'm inventing this as I'm going along, so I really don't know what I'm doing here. But I do know what I want it to look like, and like everybody, we want this transition to be nice and smooth and not have that interruption that you get when you first unpack your kit and you bolt the doors on. You see that kind of weird transition here that never really works. It doesn't line up from what I've seen, at least. So I added a bunch of reinforced filler here. This is short strand fiberglass filler, and I was able to contour this. I use the short strand because I'm asking, this has to be structural. In some cases, I've built out over 1/2 inch of material here, so this needs to be really as strong as the body that it's surrounding. But so what I did is I ended up notching this here, and that allowed me to continue this horn over and further in towards the cockpit, and then to kind of make sure everything lined up, I used the body itself as the form to form the fiberglass. So I coated it in packing tape, good slippery stuff, and I kept it coated with that packing tape as I built up this horn. So and then as you saw, I snuck up on this kind of back and forth on it. But so now you can kind of see where we're at. I hope this kind of shows up here, but. And obviously this is just as it came off of the tape. But now this horn kind of wraps around and grabs onto this. And that gives me a really pretty smooth transition. I got a lot of sanding here to do. but I'm trying to treat this as one entity. So I'm gonna end up sanding all of this smooth here, not just focusing on the door, but this as well. But what this has done, though, it's given me a really good starting point. I now know that this mates up perfectly with this panel. I'm going to sand a nice gap into here. I know after things are painted and I take it apart and put it back together, that the door will likely not be in this exact position. There's probably actually no way it will be in this exact position. I have no idea if this is how you're supposed to do it. All I know is it seems to be working, and I think it's going to get me to, cosmetically where I want to be on this. So this is about as far as I'm going to take work on these, the horns of these top of the doors. The next step is I'm going to start kind of blocking and sanding, or sanding and kind of blocking out the rest of the car, getting it ready for primer. But you can see what I've done here, and that section still needs to be sanded so it's a little more flush. But I created a pretty nice seam that I think draws a little less attention to itself than the way this normally gets done. And like I said, I'm feeling my way through this, but the way I did this real quickly is unopen the door. Might explain it a little bit better, but put a notch. You can kind of see right here. I put a notch here, and that allowed me to make this section here extend out over this section, and this notch basically nests inside here. So end result is creates a pretty smooth transition. A little more sanding ahead of me, but creates a pretty smooth transition, and I do like the way it completes that curve, that turn. So that's, like I said, that's as far as I'm going to take this. Now moving on to the rest of the body work. I'm going to start working on blending the doors into the rest of the body. There, sneak preview there. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.